If there was anybody in South Florida that I absolutely detested as much as anybody in terms of a commentator when it comes to politics, Adam Sosnick on Patrick Bett, Star of David's podcast, is not only PBD's APAC handler, but he is somebody who is so demonstrably out of his element, as John Goodman would say. And yes, Jen, I actually started watching The Big Lebowski the other day for a few minutes. I will finish it tonight. Adam Sosnick is not only out of his element, but this moron decided to sit down with one of the very best anti-Zionist Jews, yes, they exist, in this country, and that's Dave Smith. Piers Morgan even couldn't contain himself.
Piers Morgan lives in London. Do you see what's going on all over the world?
I've been an advocate of strict immigration controls for many years.
By the way,
you're just making stuff up because you have nothing, dude.
By the way,
you have nothing here, man.
You just said that America is a terrorist organization.
Adam, if you brought my country
he's
into
anti-American, and here I am as a proud American saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
You said that Dave couldn't talk about the Middle East because he hasn't been there much. When was the last time you were in England?
I spent much time in England. My ex-wife was
Okay, first of all, he hasn't been, no. What he decided to do, which is even more hilarious, when you are asked a direct question, excuse me, Adam, when's the last time you've been to England? I've been to England many times. That's not the question that was asked, you schmuck.
When was the last time?
She wasn't a sheep shagger.
When was the last time?
The last time I was in Europe, in England, in the Middle East. Where would you like me to go?
No, England.
The last time I was in England was about 8 years ago.
Right. So this idea, let me tell you.
The last time I was in Israel.
Let me tell you.
The last time I was in Israel.
This idea.
3 years ago.
Adam,
there is a weird
Piers,
idea.
do we have to put this episode out? I like Adam.
There
we
is
don't
a
have
weird
to
idea.
Adam.
There are many people.
Are you saying that not going to a country?
Adam, many people. Hang on. Many people on the conservative right in America seem to be under the illusion that my country has been taken over by radical Muslims. Let me tell you, I have lived here on and off for the last 8 years, unlike you, and respectfully, we have not been taken over by radical Muslims.
Just the fact that this has become a standard talking point amongst, it's not even a question of whether it's far-right commentary. It is just a go-to reflex when it comes to every last remnants of the Zionist stranglehold. What still works? What can we still do to convince people that we have to support Israel? Play into anti-Muslim bigotry. It's the last line of defense that they've got. It's all they've got. And it is still working with certain people. But it's primarily working with a lot of over-the-hill people. And take with that as what you want. But that's where it's at. So when you talk about radical Islam, and that's what we have to deal with, and that's the problem here, I can assure you one thing about Adam Sosnick that I am very, very confident in saying. He's never been to a mosque. He's never met people there. He has never communicated, had a legitimate conversation with somebody of the Muslim faith. I guarantee you he hasn't. In fact, I'd wager money on it. Adam Sosnick comes from the same place that Jen Perlman comes from. He's from North Miami Beach. He comes from an extremely affluent, privileged, protected upbringing and existence. This guy, without question, has never met the end of a fist that he should have. Probably many fists, to be honest. And anyone who has ever done podcasting, or anyone who understands the nuances of what draws people into a podcast, why they would be there, why they would like it, what interests them, what will keep them coming back. I'm not here to toot my horn. But one horn I will toot is that no one is tuning in to the PBD podcast. And I mean, no one is tuning in to listen to Adam Sosnick. Nobody. In fact, I'd like to see somebody who does. I want to see one son of a bitch out there raise their hand and say, you know, I got to tell you, the real reason I watch the Patrick Bet David podcast, the Patrick Bet Star of David podcast, you know why I watch it? I watch it to listen to Adam Sosnick. If there is a measurement, an algorithmic measurement as to when people drop off of a stream, I'd like to see the measurements for the PBD podcast when Sosnick starts talking and how fast people flee. And then maybe a few minutes later, 10 minutes later, because he never shuts the fuck up, and he talks over everybody as well, that people will come back. There probably is ways to measure just how much of an absolute loser he is and how no one wants to listen to him, ever. So why is it then that Patrick Bet's Star of David would continue to have on a guy that if you just go and read the comment section on every single video, it's almost universal. Why the fuck is this guy still on the channel? And I'll tell you why I think he's still on the channel, because he's definitely, unequivocally, his AIPAC handler or his Israel lobby handler. It's all one and the same. That's why he's there. He has no talent. He has no enlightened thoughts and suggestions. And believe me, this clip's going to get even more ridiculous. But that's the whole point. There is no justification as to why this guy is where he is, other than he's serving a different purpose. And I think we could all agree that the likelihood is that that is the reason why.
It just hasn't happened the way it's being sold by people like Tommy Robinson to Americans, and you're all lapping it up.
How would you define it then, Piers? How would you define it then, Piers?
I think we have a Muslim population which is predominantly peaceful and inclusive and settled well, and we have some radical members of radical Muslims, as we have radical members of other religions in this country, and we have to be very wary about it.
What other members of radical religions?
Hang on. And we have had severe immigration control issues run by successive Conservative and Labour governments who frankly lost control of our border, both to illegal immigration, but also allowed way too many people in legally. And these are proper, legitimate things to be discussed. But framing it, as some people like to do, as my country's been overrun and overtaken by radical Muslims, is just a lie. It's just not true. So yes, there are things to be concerned about. And yes, I want to see everyone who comes here assimilate, and everyone who lives here assimilate into our culture. Of course I do. But this idea that we've been overrun and overtaken is nonsense.
Yeah. Piers, can I just make
one... So you think it's all blown out of proportion, that everything that everybody is saying about Sharia law being imposed in London and Birmingham,
it hasn't been
you're saying that it's overblown?
It hasn't been imposed here.
Okay, anyway.
You're saying that it's over...
There are a number of unofficial Sharia courts operating. They have no legal basis or standing in the UK whatsoever. There is no Sharia law being operated legally in this country.
As I said, he doesn't even present an argument that can be debated. Everything he says is easily debunked. Easily. This is even worse than little Ben Shapiro debating a college student, and the college student's kicking his ass. Yeah. I see the count. This is actually a two-parter. Kevin, yeah. Colin, check that next one. We're gonna pull it. We'll finish this out, but it's like I said, this is so beyond embarrassing that at some point you really have to ask yourself, why is he even being invited on? Is he being invited on because it actually makes the pro-Israel lobby, the Hasbara narrative, look that much worse? Maybe. And keep in mind, Dave Smith is Jewish. So the more we can bury this idea that that you can't separate Judaism from Zionism is bullshit. But again, Dave Smith does not come from North Miami, Florida. Adam Sosnick does. So there is something to be said for what regions of the country one comes from and the level of Zionist contrition that ultimately exists within the culture. That's a huge part of it.
It doesn't
Thank you, Piers. Thank you for enlightening me. So you're saying it's all overblown, that Islamification of the West
come over with the whole PBD
overblown?
team and let me take you on a guided tour of the UK, and trust me, you'll be fine.
I'm sure you're going to all the nicest places and definitely none of the most dangerous places, Piers. I'm sure you're not going to Birmingham or Brick Lane or anything like that.
I love Brick Lane, best curries in England. I love Birmingham, fantastic
place.
Oh
my God!
I'll take you there.
Back to my
Jen, can you believe he fucking just said that? Okay, so this son of a bitch is actually commenting on the line of, oh, I bet you went over and had some like good Indian food or this and that. How much of a fucking bigot can you possibly be? By the way, the one thing that I do think is hysterical when people of other cultures make fun of white people, there is one thing that they are absolutely correct about. Unequivocally, other cultures that are not white have much better taste in food. They have a much more refined palate, spices, sauces, etc. So the idea that he's going to give a gotcha about eating certain food, let's just say that the type of food that this guy thinks is probably fancy cuisine. I don't want to get into anything. For some people, salt is spicy, so I don't want to give them too much shit, but you do not understand how bigoted Zionist Jews truly are until you're around them when the cameras are not rolling. And believe me when I tell you, they are in every way, shape, or form as entitled, as feeling chosen as anybody. That's why he can throw a comment out there like that. An exceptionally bigoted comment about other people's culture and food. But hey, like I said, they're used to getting away with it. Now, I did say this is a two-parter. So if you thought that first part was ridiculous, this is even more ridiculous.
% of Americans vote for your people, Dave. Why don't you run for something? Why don't you stand for something? You stand for nothing.
Okay, can I respond? Again, Piers, this is the level of substance.
No. Here we go. I'm going to tell you a story, Dave, and then you can respond. Because this is where I lost respect for you as a debater. Because I was like, oh, this guy, Dave, he actually knows some stuff. He's doing his thing. And then you showed up on Coleman Hughes' podcast. Piers, do you know who Coleman Hughes is?
I do. He's been on the show.
I've been on the show with him.
Perfect. That's this guy right here, just in case, if the camera doesn't see.
But what is the point you're making?
I watched this podcast. The point is this. Dave gets out there and he tries to bully people and say that he's so smart. He reads a lot of books. Good for you, Dave. But what happens when you run into somebody who's way smarter and bullies the bully? I remember growing up in this town of Miami, so there was this kid that used to pick on all the kids that we went to school with. And one day, some new kid showed up, and he goes, oh, yeah, let's go, buddy. Let's do this. And the bully goes, oh, what do you mean? What do you want to do? And he goes, no, yeah, you want to fight everybody? You want to take everybody's lunch? Let's go. And the new kid beat the crap out of the bully.
I have a feeling that A, you were not the kid who beat the crap out of the bully. B, this was a made-up story, and C, if you were ever in a fight, I have a feeling you got your head kicked in pretty hard. Now, why somebody would make up a story so absurd in this context that has nothing to do with what this conversation is about? Again, this guy is so out of his element. You're entering a world of pain, Adam. And no, there is no bowling on Shabbos either.
And here's what happened with Dave. He's out there just doing his little podcast thing, debating, like you said, Ben Shapiro, 19-year-olds. And then all of a sudden, this whole conversation about Wesley Clark, and I saw him on your podcast about a week ago, Piers, and this memo, here you go, Dave. Remember this memo from Wesley Clark that you used to cite everything?
This is adorable.
That you used to cite, yeah. That is adorable because your whole foundation is based on some memo.
Well, I'm not quite sure what, Adam, I'm not quite sure what is the point you're making.
The point is this: Dave has zero credibility at this point. Dave has zero credibility.
Well, you don't really get to decide
and he
that.
ran
You know,
into somebody
the audience gets
that
to decide
completely
that.
bullied. What audience?
Okay.
The four people that show up to your comedy show at the ha.
Yeah.
And there is, and again, it's not just that he is such a loser. He has the audacity to talk about numbers, when it comes to a podcast. He is addressing this idea that somehow more people watch his channel than they watch Dave Smith. Nobody watches you, Adam Sosnick. Nobody likes you. And on top of everything else, Patrick Bett, Star of David, is a grifter and a sellout. And you're his AIPAC handler. Once I understood what this organization was about, then that was the end. I tried to get Jen on with them when she ran against Wasserman Schultz. And you know what they wanted me to do? Just to have the honor of talking to Patrick Bet David to discuss the possibility of coming on the podcast. They wanted me to buy one of their packages. You know, he does insurance. Yeah, that's what would have required me to spend $1,500, I think it was, just to talk to him. And then they'll decide whether they would like to have Jen on the podcast. We all know where it would have went. Nowhere. This is a grift. That's all it's ever been. And as long as Sosnick keeps talking and keeps making an absolute fool of himself, then the faster the state of Israel is going to collapse on itself. And may it happen sooner rather than later.